Hi there, this is Krista Hermans, estate planning attorney, and we are talking about what happens if you die without a will. This is probably one of the most misconceptions when it comes to estate planning about somebody actually um, not having to do an estate plan, right? So, what happens if you were to die and you had no estate planning documents in place? So, it really depends on your situation, right? What assets do you have? Do you own a home? Do you have bank accounts, investment accounts, retirement accounts? Who do you have as beneficiaries for these accounts? If you own a home and you maybe are married or you have a partner, is the partner or your spouse on title to that home, or is it in your individual name? Sometimes the way that people think things are, you purchased a home together, and for whatever finance the home, somebody got taken out of that off that title to be able to do the mortgage, and they are no longer on the property for this home. We've seen this happen quite often. And so it really comes down to those assets that you have and making sure that all of those assets are taken care of. Now, the easiest way to make sure that your family and your assets are protected are by having an estate plan, right? Having a will, a trust, guardian nomination, advance authorization, all of these really important documents. But without having these, what actually happens? So, when in California, which is where I am licensed to practice law, we have what's referred to as probate court. And when you own assets in your individual name, they would have to go through this probate court process to be able to go in front of the court and say, here are all of the assets that you owned, right? Generally, you would have somebody that would petition a court for letters. We would maybe refer to this as an executor or petitioner. And then they would have the ability to then be able to go through, gather all of your assets, notify creditors. They would be required to put this through a publication, which means putting in a newspaper and letting other people know that you've passed away, and then start gathering all of your assets to bring into this probate court process for understanding, okay, what bank accounts did you have? If there was any beneficiary designation, that passes outside of probate court. However, if it didn't have a beneficiary designation, and I've seen a lot of these within the last few years where people had retirement accounts or investment accounts and they had no beneficiary designation. And so it's important to make sure that you do have those beneficiary designations if you would want them on there. But if they didn't have them, then those assets could be brought into probate court as well. Selling a home or distributing the home as part of the probate process. And then once it goes through that process, which can take 1 to 2 years in California to be able to go through that entire process, the petitioner would then ask the court for permission to basically distribute those assets or whatever has been sold and whatever money is remaining, right? This is after all the bills have been paid, the personal representative, the attorney, all of the fees have been paid. And then at the end, whatever is left over is then would be distributed according to what we call legally as intestate succession, which basically means, what does your family tree look like? One of the biggest myths that I hear is people say, oh, well, I'm married, so my spouse would get everything. And that's not necessarily true. In a situation where, let's say that somebody owned um, a bank account, right? And maybe it was owned prior to marriage, it was their separate property. So at that point, if that person were to pass away and they were married, but they also had children, let's say that there were two kids, then the spouse, according to intestate succession, would therefore be entitled to 1/3 of that account, and the children would each be entitled to 1/3. So for a total of 2/3 going to the children, right? So it's not automatically going to the spouse. And this is one thing that I think a lot of people really have confusion about is what assets just automatically go to the spouse. I will say if there is what's called a joint tenancy with right of survivorship, right? That language specifically with right of survivorship, that's generally where it would then go to the spouse upon one spouse's passing. Okay, if you're just joining me, we are talking about what happens if you die without a will in place? And again, it's understanding that if you own assets, and again, it's not just owning a home. There's bank accounts, investment accounts that have to go through the probate court process to be able to be distributed. This is something that once people really understand it, they would want to avoid it. Okay. If you are just joining me and you have any questions, please feel free to put that in the chat, and I will get to those questions. If not, please join me. And if you're watching this in the replay, put your questions below, and I can try and get to it this week, as I am going to be trying to go live every day to go through specific estate planning questions, probate court, trust administrations, all of these things that people have been asking about. And there's really a lot of misconceptions about that I think it's really important to understand. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to put those questions in there. Hello, thanks for joining. Just going through some of the chats right now. Hello, hello. Again, talking about your estate planning questions, we're talking about wills and what happens if you pass away without one. If you are not sure, and you're not really sure where to start, because I understand estate planning is very confusing, I urge you to send a message to me with the word will, and we will send you a link to a free consultation. And there you can get a really good understanding about why estate planning is important and see if it really is something that is good for you. Keep in mind that we are only licensed to practice in California, so you must be a California resident for us to be able to assist you. If you do need help, we have attorneys that we work with throughout the entire United States. So please just send us a message and ask for an attorney in your state, and we're happy to send that to you. Okay, again, if you're watching this in the replay, I hope this provided you some value. Make sure to send me that message with the word will, and I will get that link sent to you to schedule that free. And then if you have any questions, please put your comment in the chat, and I will get to it this week. So join me every day live to answer your estate planning questions. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.